Welcome to First Down Sports. As always, I'm your host, Ray Dunn. Now, sitting beside me here tonight, to my left, is Andy Jardine, my co-host.
Yo!
And also, still tonight on audio, is my little brother, Nicky Dunn.
Hey.
How's it going, Nick?
It's going good.
So this is our first Canadian content podcast.
Awesome.
At 47 years old, you don't get too many firsts anymore. You got to take them when you can. You know, first new content podcast, first hole-in-one. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to talk about golf on this podcast. But so Andy, welcome to First Down Sports Canada A. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to call this yet. We're throwing around some names, and listeners, if you want to help us out with names on this podcast, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What'd you do this weekend?
I was in Toronto. I had to go to Toronto for work. I left on Thursday. There was work stuff and everything, but it was a pretty good weekend, which included a game we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
My very first game at BMO Field.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing about that. Now, just again, real quick reminder, this show is specifically about Canadian football. We're talking CFL. We're going to talk U Sports. We're going to get into, of course, the Atlantic Sport Conference. We might even get into high school football. Here's the thing, listeners. If there's anything across this country that you want us to touch on, or if you want to come on and talk to us about something going on with football across Canada, we want to have you on. We'd love to hear the stories. We want to talk about Canadian football players right across. It's a great game we have here in Canada, 3 downs. And being an official in Canada, we're going to talk a lot about rules too, and I got a rules discussion for you tonight.
Awesome.
All right, so here's the exciting thing for our first show. We had to go big on this one. We had to get a good guest, and we got a great guest. Not only is he a CFL player, we got to do sponsors. Good job, Andy.
Well, the question is, are they really going to sponsor the Canadian show? I guess we're going to have to ask them.
Well,
we're going to assume for now.
That's the thing. I mean, we've got 3 solid. If you've listened to our regular podcast, we got 3 solid sponsors. We got a great beer sponsor. Let's talk about them real quick. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, you need a beer, go get yourself a Moose Light or Moose Head. Any Moose Head product is great. This stuff is scary good.
And speaking of that, so in honor of our first Canadian show, I spiced it up a little bit here. Ray brought down a Moose Head Light Lime.
There you go.
I don't believe I've ever tried it before, but look out. Here it comes.
Look out. Here comes the Moose Lime. And if you need hats, shirts, pens, you name it, you go see our buddies, the Doyle's Corporate Image. They take care of all sports teams and stuff like that.
Absolutely. The Doyle's rule.
And last but not least, our other sponsor is, and again, if your kitchen sucks, you got to go see my little brother, Nicky. He's got his own company. It's called it's called Done Right Buffalo Sauce.
Done Right Sauce.
See, I knew I was going to get screwed up there. They've just re-imaged. They got a new name for their company. It's called Done Right Sauce.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here for the reason. Because you're going to start making sauces that aren't buffalo wing sauce, and it's time to make it. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So they're making it for everything.
And also, too, I mean, it's good on everything.
Absolutely.
Having the buffalo in there just kind of makes it sound like it's only for wings.
Awesome. You got it. So I could put it on my steak, you're telling me?
I do.
Steaks, pork chops.
Eggs.
Eggs, bacon, everything.
Yeah. Awesome.
Everything.
Is it good on salad?
We've had some people put it on salad.
Nice. There you go.
Cream.
There's our sponsors. Now, there's other sponsors out there that are going crazy trying to sponsor this particular show. We've had one contacting us, for example, Frank's Hot Sauce.
He messes up their name, too.
Now, hold on here. We're not ready to deal with you yet, Frank's. My little brother Nick's company has sponsored the other podcast by 100 bottles. We have to see what they're willing to do for this one. So We'll get back to you on it.
Step up to the plate, Frank.
All right, let's get into our first guest. So we had to go big, like I told you. We've got a guy that is a CFL player. He got his university career started right here in the Maritimes. He played for St. Avex football. This is a great guy. Number 42 from the Ottawa Red Blacks, Ron Omara. Here you go, guys. We're going to start that interview right now. All right, we are excited with our first guest this week. He is our first CFL player interview that started his university playing days right here in the Maritimes with St. Francis Xavier University, where in 2011 he was awarded with Rookie of the Year, and in 2013 was named Defensive Player of the Year, and finally 2014 was named the Student Athlete Male of the Year. In 2015, he was drafted by the Hamilton Ticats, and on February 15, 2017, was signed with the Ottawa Redblacks. It's my pleasure to welcome number 42, Ron Omara, to First Down Sports.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good.
Good to be out here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Ron, that was a heck of a resume from your playing days at St. FX. Growing up in Quebec. What made you decide to come east and attend St. FX?
Well, I played football out in Ottawa mostly. I live in like the Gatineau side. It's called the Gatineau, Ottawa region. So even though I am considered in Quebec, Ottawa is literally right here.
Gotcha.
So I grew up playing football there, and with the Ottawa Sooners, they had a big St. FX alumni base, and then Coach Waterman had been recruiting me for about 2 years before I ended up committing officially. And it wasn't until I went to the school on the visit was when X kind of sold it all for me.
Mm. Talk a little bit about the school. 'Cause I'll tell you one thing. I'll never forget when I went up to X to officiate my first football game. And I knew I was driving in the middle of nowhere to get to the school.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget how beautiful the school was when I pulled in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about X.
You know, you're absolutely right when you talk about the beauty of St. FX and the campus. I remember my first time when I went down. That was the first thing that captivated me. You know, just the way the campus was and how it was situated, and it was perfect. It was a really nice campus, especially in the summer too. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But I mean, St. FX as a whole. I mean, I tell this to all people who've never went to X. You know, it'd be like, oh, did you like it? I'm like, yeah, but it's something that you won't be able to understand unless you actually go. You know, a lot of us call it the Matrix. You know, it's a place that, you know, you can't really explain, but you got to be there to really understand it, you know, and that's just how special and great the time was.
And you know what else I find interesting about X is it doesn't matter where you go. I've been on numerous vacations or football trips myself.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many times you see that X ring.
Yeah.
You know, people
No
that
kidding.
still wear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it connects you to lots of people. I can't tell you how many times that I was at a store or, you know, from afar and someone, you know, just recognized me just based off of the ring I was wearing. And next thing you know, we're talking about a whole lot of things, and they know people that I know, and they did things that, you know, I've heard about. And you know, it's kind of a big family in the world, essentially. So, I mean, it's a unique place to be in, honestly, with the X ring. And, you know, being a small town, it kind of forces you to form closer ties with your teammates and friends that you end up meeting there. And I think that's what makes it even more special, too, as well. You get to build a lot of memories that way.
Yeah, and, you know, as a Mount A grad, I can tell you that we noticed that X ring around, too. It just means something different to us, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Coach Waterman. Now, I have the pleasure to work the sidelines. In fact, I'm going to be there this weekend against St. Mary's. He is, out of all the coaches that I've had the pleasure to work the sidelines with, he is one of the best from an officiating standpoint. Talk to me about Coach Waterman as a coach, as a recruiter, as well as the rest of the staff there.
Well, you know, he's very well spoken. I think overall he's a really great individual. He knows how to talk to people and treat them with respect. And I think just like you were saying, how, you know, you like officiating with him. I don't think that's you know, I'm not surprised when I hear that. I mean, he knows how to carry himself with good class. He's grown a lot throughout the years as a coach, obviously winning championships and you know, hoping to win another one obviously this year. And he's been doing a great job ever since. I have nothing but good things to say about Coach Waterman.
Well, last year in 2016, I had the opportunity. I was selected from New Brunswick to represent the New Brunswick officials to go out west and work the Mitchell Bowl, which St. FX happened to be playing in.
Yep.
And again, the class that they had, in greeting me on the sideline, because I worked their sideline the first half of the game.
Yep.
Did you have an opportunity to watch that game?
Yeah. I was in Hamilton at the time, and we went to Boston Pizza. Obviously, I wore some X stuff and had my X ring there, and it was me and my buddy Kylie Hall, who also played at St. FX, and it was close there in the beginning. I think X really showed how good they were, and I think a couple calls put them in behind a little bit. But other than that, I was real happy to see what they were able to show the nation in terms of football in the AUS, and I think that's a good testament to Coach Waterman, the staff, and the players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you watched that game, and you mentioned earlier that you remember Ray's face a little bit from the field. So here's your opportunity to give us a little feedback on how he does out there. And don't worry, I just shut off his headset. So go ahead, let it fly.
Mr. Ray did a great job, fantastic job.
Awesome, thank you.
Officiating is not easy. It's very easy to kind of watch a game and then pinpoint fingers on anyone, but at the end of the day, I know it's not easy. There's a lot of things that you got to look up for, and he did a good job doing that.
He's gonna quote this so much, Ron. Trust me. Like he's gonna call Ron's name and quote this every time we give him a grief about anything.
Yeah.
Listen, in 2015, talk to me a little bit about the draft process. So in 2015, you were drafted by the Ticats, but also I was impressed to see that you attended NFL rookie mini camp with the Giants.
Yeah.
How does that work into the process? Like in terms of when the drafts take place, when you get invited.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that take place. There's rankings and stuff. I wasn't ranked actually in my draft year, but it's not about that as much as it is about what you do and what your agent, I guess, does for you as well. I had the opportunity to train out in Florida at Bommarito Performance Systems, and while I was out there, that was when U.S. interest started to kind of skyrocket a little bit for me. Got to go to the regional, did well there, good enough to get selected to go to the super regional, and where I got interviewed by a couple of NFL teams. And from there, I think my name kind of circulated a little bit in the NFL system. So when the Giants came down to choosing, I guess, people to come down for minicamp tryout, they were definitely intrigued by them because they had seen me a little bit beforehand. So I think that definitely helped into that. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. They do it right down there in the NFL, no question about it. Even here in the CFL as well, but that was a great experience to be a part of.
Yeah, and I do not mean this as a knock against the CFL whatsoever, right? But when it comes to the NFL versus the CFL, I mean we're the most talented players, and that's where all the money is, right? So the most talented players from the States end up down there. But can you describe the speed of the play just in the mini camp that you attended with the Giants? Like, was it a noticeable thing?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of one of those things where no matter what, if you take a competitive individual who believes he's as good as he is, and he's put in a room with guys who are just as competitive, you're going to kind of raise your level of competitiveness in that moment.
Yeah.
So I mean, the game was fast. Don't get me wrong; it was very high tempo, very fast, but you adapted well to it. I think the biggest thing was that there were just so many big guys that were able to run. That was the thing about the NFL. It's just, I mean, from the line of scrimmage, when you look at the tight ends and the D linemen and even the linebackers, I mean, the size is different compared to the CFL, right? Where they take kind of the smaller, more speedier linebacker. But even then, I mean, they're still pretty fast out there for their size. So I think that was the biggest thing. But I mean, like I said, I mean, when you're put in a competitive situation, you just kind of tend to adapt and rise to the challenge.
Absolutely. You go with the flow of the traffic, right? You had to go the same speed. Yep. Awesome.
Yep.
So Ron, if you're talking to if you're talking to guys that are back in X or, in the AUS or any youth sports university for that matter, what's the biggest challenge making the jump from the university playing to pro level football? What's the biggest challenge that people need to be aware of?
I think for me, if I'm going to go off based off my experience, the biggest challenge, honestly, is to not think that you're any less than what you are, kind of thing. I think some people, when they get into the pros, they get it into their head sometimes that, they just want to just make the team or they want to do this. I think it's good to kind of, have high goals and believe that you can actually go out there and do something great. And if there's one big advice is to get out there on the special teams and show that aspect of it, especially as a Canadian. The biggest way to make any team in the CFL is to go out there on special teams and work hard, because coaches like that, and it makes you more of an asset on the team, 100%. And sometimes that's the difference between them cutting another person instead of you.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, you got the opportunity to get picked up in free agency, Ron, by the Ottawa Red Blacks coming off their Grey Cup win. And like you mentioned to me, I mean, you're basically from Ottawa. How excited was that? Like, I mean, that clearly must have been where you wanted to go, right?
The thing about free agency, and you can't want to go to a specific place. You have to open up your mind, because at the end of the day, as much as you want to play at a certain spot, I mean, the opportunities are what matters. Mostly. So, I honestly didn't think Ottawa was going to pick me up. That was kind of like a last second thing. So I was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. Now, so it was surprising and at the same time really great to see it. Of course, playing in my hometown, where I grew up playing football is obviously, I mean, nothing could beat that. So to be here is definitely a blessing and an honor.
Awesome. And your first year with the Red Blacks, you guys are going through a little bit of a tough time right now, just in terms of the fact that you're down to your third quarterback, a lot of bad luck happening. But that East is so wide open. I bet you guys still think you're all the way in it and you're going right back to the Grey Cup, right?
Absolutely. You know what? I mean, like I said, we're all competitors. As hard as the games have been, this season, I think we've shown a lot of ability in terms of what we can really do and what we can accomplish. And there's still a couple games left, and we're still sitting second in the East, not far from first. We were first last week, and I think just by taking it one game at a time, these next 4 or 5 games are going to be pretty crucial. And injuries happen, but I mean, that's all part of adversity, right? We always try to figure out a way, and we're going to try to do everything we can to get to that Grey Cup again.
Awesome.
That's awesome. It's funny. I don't know if you saw this today, but it was just announced that the Rough Riders signed Trent Richardson.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And there's always lots of rumors circling around former NFL players looking to make a comeback in the CFL. Right. And one of the names out there is Johnny Manziel. He's pushing the Ticats to deal him so that he can sign with the team. From a CFL perspective, what's your thoughts on these guys coming down to the CFL after not working out in the NFL? And B, would you like to get your hands wrapped around a Johnny Manziel?
I mean, they're competitors too, right? They want to continue to play the game. The way I look at it is this, at any day, it doesn't matter whether you're playing the CFL or the NFL, if anyone wants to come and play, you kind of have to kind of show up. And, both games are very different. Being able to be with the Giants at that mini camp, I've got to learn firsthand that the game is very different. And some people adapt to it really well and others don't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's great to see that, people still have that drive and want to play football. So it's really good for, obviously, Trent Richardson to be able to get signed by the Riders. And, hopefully he can go out and show what he wants to do. But I'm sure a lot of people would like to, get their hands around him for sure. I agree.
Yeah, and Ron, I'm really starting to get into the Canadian game now, but my first love with football was the NFL, and I'm a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. So both those names that I just mentioned have broken my heart in different ways. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a tip. I'm going to tell you exactly how you defend Trent Richardson, okay? And I feel like I deserve to take this shot at him. What I want you to do is, I want you to let the O-line open up the biggest hole possible, because he will not go there. All right, so just stack it on one side, open up the most obvious spot. He won't go there. You're all set.
All right. I'll make sure to tell Coach Nelly that.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, a really good buddy of ours shares the sidelines with you a little bit in the games. He's a friend of our show. He's been on a bunch. His name's Ray Perkin. He's your equipment manager.
Oh, Ray, Mr. Perkin.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Ray.
A
Yep, I
legend
got
back
you.
here in Sackville, New Brunswick, right?
Yeah, he's a legend out here in Ottawa too.
Awesome.
Good old Ray.
Well,
Well,
listen.
you can never go wrong if your name's Ray with a W. Just so
Yeah.
you know, you
That's
can
what I
never
was
go
just
wrong.
gonna say. Yeah, and Ray Dunn too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So listen, other than taking $20 off him for that St. FX win, you got anything else embarrassing on him?
You know what?
We could use it.
You know, Ray's real good at managing himself. He doesn't really get embarrassed too easily. So we kind of try to get him with the bets. I know St. Mary's, there's like 2 St. Mary's guys on the Ottawa roster right now, and they had that crazy win last second on Mount A.
Yeah.
And I know, I think it was Matt Albright. He had a Snapchat, and Ray was in it, of course, and you know, he owed him $10 and stuff, and was kind of chirping Ray a little bit. But you know what, Ray does a great job in the equipment room, and you know, everyone likes him. Everyone likes him. We got lots of nicknames for him. You know, we call him Ricky Ray. You know, there's tons.
That's great. He's a great kid. He
He's
really
probably
is.
listening right now.
Oh, he will definitely be. He will definitely be listening. He is one of our biggest critics. He'll tell us week to week what he loved, and he'll tell us week to week what he didn't love.
Of course.
And
you know what? Ray's not afraid to. You know, if you want to talk football, talk with Ray. You know, he's got a lot of football knowledge.
Oh, we've
that he can
had
bring back to Mount Allison.
we've had him on the show a couple times now to talk CFL, and this guy is very passionate about the CFL game.
Oh yes, and you could tell. You know, and it's always great to be around people like that because it makes the locker room that much better. You know, when you like to do what you want to do, it kind of comes across in how you treat other people as well.
Yeah.
And that's how Ray is. You know, same with RJ as well.
Well, that's
The
awesome.
other equipment manager there. So, yeah, we got some good people out here in Ottawa.
Our last question for you. We're going to go back to the AUS. Okay. St. FX is currently 2-2 in the standings, and they're about to take St. Mary's on this weekend at home.
Yeah.
In their homecoming game. If you weren't playing, you'd be there. So my biggest question to you is this. Is St. FX, the way it works now, I'm not sure if you know this, because Bishops is part of the AUS conference now.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know that. They had the win last week on them.
That's right. So only 3 teams make it to the playoffs now. The bottom 2 are out. And there's 5 weeks left in the season. Is St. FX going to be represented in the playoffs this year?
Absolutely. And I think they're going to be well represented. I think if they keep up their level of play, like the way they played Mount A the first time and Bishops, you know, that last week, especially those first 3 quarters, I think they could go on a pretty good run and potentially even, you know, snag first. They're definitely going to be in the playoffs. I'd be very shocked if they weren't.
Well, you know, it's funny because I worked the first game of the year, Mount A versus Acadia, where Mount A won 63-24.
Yeah.
And then I was in X for the next game, and I told everybody on the podcast, Mount A's got this wrapped up this year. Nobody's going to touch them. Offense looks great. Defense looks great.
Wow.
Then we go to X, and they lose 37-0. I was like, I am not making any more predictions when it comes to sports anymore.
Right. No, I agree. You know what? We've been talking about it ever since week 1 too. I remember that too. You know, they beat Acadia 63-20 something, and then the week after and leading up anyways to now, Acadia is now strong. You know, X is showing to be strong too, and SMU seems to be obviously the front runner right now, which I think is going to end this Saturday, of course. But there was no way X was losing that game to Mount A. There was a lot of things riding for them that day that meant a lot to them, obviously with Ashton Dixon, and you could just feel it. I remember opening up the webcast and watching, you know, the pre-game, you know, ceremony in honor of Ashton, and I knew right away. I was like, "There's no way they're losing that game."
Oh, you could see. I was on the sideline for and it was very emotional. I mean, I was even tearing up as an official, and
you know,
when those players took the field, they were at a different level than Mount A was right from the get-go. There was no question.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of those players knew Ashton very well, and they obviously respected him. And, you know, everyone respects what he did, especially in the AUS and in the nation as a football player. So, I mean, it was really good to see what they did. And, you know, I really hope they continue to to play as hard as they did like that day.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you on all day, but I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come on to First Down
No
Sports,
worries.
chatting some
No worries. Thank you
CFL
for
and
having
AUS with us.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
You've got an open invitation, Ron. Anytime you want to give us a call and talk about something going on in the CFL or U Sports or any sport for that matter, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I will definitely keep that in mind. Thank you very
All right.
much again for having me.
Best of luck to the
And
Red Blacks down the
X,
stretch.
Go X, go.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about go
thank you.
Red
I
Blacks?
appreciate
We're going to have to agree on that one, maybe.
Go
Yeah.
Red Blacks too. Go Red Blacks too, obviously, of course. That's a good.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, that's Ron Omara.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, that's it, Ron. All right, Andy, that was Ron Omara. What'd you think of that?
What a great guy. All right, we need to have Ron on a lot.
That I tell you, out of all the interviews we've done, and we've done a number of different interviews, I really enjoyed that. He was just a great guest overall.
Yeah, we need to find a Mount A player with that kind of personality. They have to be out there. Hey, come on, guys. CFL, Mount A.
We'll see. I've been working on a couple Mount A guys. We'll see if they pick up the phone.
All right.
All right, now talking about AUS, we just talked a lot of college football with Ron. Let's get into some games over the weekend. We had St. FX made their first trip to Bishops. The Gators trailed this game 23-1 at halftime, and after a couple fourth quarter touchdowns to Nathan Walker and Alex Bruford, they came up short again in the fourth quarter, and St. FX walks away with this game 37-27. I'm not sure what it is about the Gators. It seems even in the game in Mount A, neither team played strong very well, or they didn't play the first half very well, but they did have the lead there 10-3 after the first half. The Gators have a tough time getting out of the gate to start these games.
You see that sometimes. I guess, I always think it's you come out a little more carefree when you know that your backs are against the wall and you're less worried about making a mistake and you're just out there letting it fly. And it sounds like that's what they did here in the fourth quarter. You said 2 touchdowns, right, for the Gators?
Yeah, they had 2 touchdowns. And they have a big travel schedule being part of the AUS. I mean, Bishops is about an hour from Montreal.
Yeah.
And, when they're coming out east, it's a big travel day for them. But in this particular game, they were at home, so you think they would have gotten off to a better start.
Yeah, well,
but
I'm sure their coach is going on and on about, we have to start fast. We have to start fast because they just can't seem to do it.
I like this team, and like I told you, I love their coaching staff. Their coaching staff was great, so hopefully they can get that turned around. Just to give you a couple stats, Josh Miller, the kid I told you looks like a little bit like a young Bledsoe.
The young Bledsoe.
This kid goes 24 for 38, 356 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a interception. His main target of the day was Keon Julian Grant, who went for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
It's a good name for a receiver.
So that's that. St. FX wins that game 37-27.
And it takes them to 2-2, which we touched on with Ron. Yep. So
we'll see where they go. They're in it. They're technically in second place overall right now in the AUS. Here's a big game. I mean, we're going to go back to week 1 of our original podcast when I said Mount A was going to win everything this year.
Yeah.
You guys heard me say that. Yeah. I said Mount A was going to clean house this year. Well, last week they lost by 1 point to Bishops. And this week against St. Mary's, Mary's makes a last-minute score to win this game in Mount A by 1 point.
Wow.
That's back-to-back weeks at home, down by 1. This game went back and forth throughout the game, both in scoring. There were numerous mistakes made by both teams, but this could be a big issue for Mount A. There's been no details since the injury. But Jacob Lokes was injured in the game.
Yeah.
And number 8, Troy Downton, came into the game as quarterback. He played very well. He threw for 168 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. But I don't know what to expect from this Mount A team, depending on where Lokes is with his injury.
I almost feel partially to blame. I'm I'm a terrible source of bad luck for any team that I get on board with. And right back to week one, you were talking up Mount A. I'm a Mount A grad. I thought, you know what? I have to go to this game. I have to check out the football scene. These guys are going to be a powerhouse. And I was convinced you were right. And wow, this is a lot of bad luck. Two games in a row. There's only so many games in the regular season here, and you were thinking run the table, and well, they're gonna have to run the table now.
They played 9 games. It's a 9-game season.
Yeah.
The quarterback for St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's 4-0 now. His name is Caleb Scott. We've talked about him a couple times. Yeah. Listen to this guy. He throws for 356 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions, not that great, but 356 yards, it's a good passing day.
Yeah.
He also led the team in rushing. 154 yards in rushing this guy had as a quarterback.
He's the team,
This guy is the offense. Now, to give you a couple wide receivers, there's a Rick McGorgan. There's no way I'm pronouncing that right, but he pulls in 124 yards. And that Arkellis Jack that we talked about last time, he had 105 yards receiving. This St. Mary's team looks good.
Yeah, exactly. And Mr. and Mrs. McGorgan there, you put together a great son, the beast of an athlete.
Beast of an athlete. Now, let's just talk about the standings here real quick in the AUS. So that makes St. Mary's 4-0. Acadia now is 2-2. St. FX 2-2, and Mount A and Bishops are in the basement at 1-3.
Yeah.
And this week doesn't get any easier because both those teams, they have to win now.
Oh yeah,
they have
for sure.
to win. All right.
Sounds to me like this Caleb Scott, it has to be the lead. I don't know if there's a website that tracks this right now, or if anybody kind of does an update weekly. But this guy's got to be AUS Player of the Year favorite.
He's up there now.
Yeah.
Here's a neat thing. St. Mary's has officially broke the top 10 universities across the country.
Wow.
Let's just go through these real quick. So Montreal's leading number 1, which they usually do. Calgary and Laval. There's no real big surprise between those 3. Western's up there. And what's interesting, Montreal and Calgary are 4-0. Western's in at 4th, 5-0. Okay, I'm not 100% how the standings affect. Laurier's at 4-0. Then you got UBC McMaster at 3-1. Concordia and Regina at 2-2.
Yeah.
And then St. Mary's comes in at 4-0.
It has to be. I mean, it's just like the States, I'm sure. It comes down to the competition you face, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, those Western teams have to play some powerhouses, and you can still look at what's out there on the field and realize these are, a cut above maybe what you see in the AUS. But.
And perhaps. But I will tell you, in all my years of officiating AUS football, this is the best I've seen. The conference looks really good this year, and all 5 teams look competitive.
Absolutely. Mount A's in the basement, and we saw what they were capable of week 1, and Bishops just has to figure out how to play, 2 halves.
That's it.
And it's a competitive, for sure.
There you go. That's your U Sports AUS update. We're going to move right along now to our CFL. We just talked about this game. Ottawa goes to Winnipeg, and Lindley started out at quarterback, our 3rd-string quarterback. They lose 9-29 against Winnipeg. Wins 29-9.
Yeah.
Matt Nichols goes the quarterback for Winnipeg. He throws for 319 yards and 2 touchdowns. Plus, he moved out of the pocket very well.
Oh yeah.
I thought he played extremely well in this particular game.
Very accurate on the run. They're very dangerous with the deep ball, or just anywhere outside, in that 25-yard range. They have that beast running back, Andrew Harris, right?
That's right.
And so they've got a lot going for them. Their offense is electric. Ottawa, I watched this game at a house party in Toronto, and nobody else wanted to watch it, so I had it on this little 13-inch TV in the room. Ryan Lindley's a respected quarterback, even south of the border, and he's a guy I think that works with a lot of quarterbacks, just on their mechanics and stuff. And I think he's just taken some time to adapt to the CFL game. When he first got in there, he was thinking he's going to throw it down the field all the time. He's now accepting, what the Ottawa offense gives you, which is those quick outs and short passing game, but his accuracy just wasn't there.
No.
And he wasn't doing his receivers any favors, and and in turn they weren't doing any either. But
Well,
yeah.
he went 16 for 36, just
Yeah.
to talk about accuracy.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty.
Hamilton wins a nail biter again, 24-23 over BC. Montreal at Toronto. Toronto wins this game 33-19. Now, I'd love to tell you all about this game, but who am I to talk? You were there.
Yeah,
You were at BMO Field.
BMO Field.
Now, you made a comment to me
Yep.
on Facebook Messenger, because we messaged back and forth during the game. I was at a high school game. I'll talk about that in a second. But you made a comment to me that BMO Field is one of the nicest fields you've ever been to.
It's one of the. I believe the exact comment was, "This is the best place I've ever gone to watch a football game, including the NFL."
Yeah.
Blows the NFL out of the water, just in terms of, the chaotic stadiums and so on. Now, granted, the Argos attendance issues might have had something to do with that. I mean, it's a gorgeous field. It's wide open. They play on grass now, finally, not like in the Rogers Center, where a big stuffy dome. It's wide open. The wind can go through, though it was like 40 degrees in Toronto while I was there with the humidity and no wind. It was gross, but the fan experience is awesome. Like you can stand anywhere you want and have an amazing view of the field. There's no bad seat in the house whatsoever. The downfall, I guess, to watching it on TV is the cameras face the side of the field that nobody seems to want to sit on. I don't understand why. That's where the big high rise is.
Yeah.
But even down close to the field, they have that nifty little, it's like a white maple leaf that's made into seats and so on, and you can practically see it during the game because there's nobody sitting in those seats, and I don't understand. But where I was, it was wild.
Wow.
And it was really loud. And yeah, I think, because you could basically go anywhere you wanted to go. There weren't big, long lineups. So granted, maybe if it was packed or, like an FC game or something like that, maybe it wouldn't be as good. But I've never had a better time at a football game, at a pro football game than at BMO Field. Unreal. Now I totally understand why everybody says Argos games have gotten that much better after they moved out of the dome. So, but it was a good game. Darian Durant, he came over from Saskatchewan, and his accuracy is an issue. I think he's kind of on his way out now.
Yeah, well, he's close to retirement.
Yeah, his accuracy. Now, every time he did throw a good ball, his receivers weren't helping him out. There were two, and I've got some video footage that, probably playing right now if you're watching this on YouTube, but, there was a pick six that was, I would say, on him. The throw was high. The guy was wide open, but the throw was high. But then there was another interception where the receiver got his hands on it, bobbled it up in the air, basically tapped it up and served it up to the cornerback. So, and then, listen, Toronto looks good. Their offense is good. And definitely Ottawa's got their work cut out for them now. Toronto moved into first place here now and has one fewer game played. But Ricky Ray, he was missing with his long ball early, but it didn't matter. I mean, they could basically go out there and do anything they wanted to do. And it was a really, really fun game. I look forward to, if Toronto's the team from the East that gets in, because I think we both agree there'll only be one.
Yeah.
They've got as much of a shot as Ottawa or anyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from what I saw in the game, the player that I noticed the most was James Wilder Jr.
Yeah.
This guy was all over the place. He was running the ball, catching the ball. He just seemed to get a lot of TV time. Now, while you were at that game, I was here at Rocky Stone Park in Moncton, and I watched Fredericton High School take on Moncton High School. And it was an awesome football game. Here's the one thing I love about the CFL, watching the CFL. Their quarterbacks are gunslingers.
Yeah.
They're looking downfield, and they're throwing the ball 35, 40, 50 yards downfield all the time. Like, it is a big passing league. And this high school game, these two young quarterbacks that were in the game, you should have seen the arms and the accuracy on these two kids. The biggest problem they were having is the receivers. There was Fredericton in particular. This kid could throw the ball, but his receivers would give up on the play. You could see them specifically giving up on the play. I didn't like that, but these quarterbacks are really good. Now, here's a little rules thing, okay?
Okay.
I am going to put together a package, I think, And I'm going to go around and drop this package off to every high school, every university, and maybe pro teams, okay? But nobody seems to understand how to operate the clock in the last 3 minutes of play in Canadian football. So I'm just going to tell you this real quick. In the last 3 minutes, the clock stops on every play. And every time the whistle blows, you're going to see this from an official stopping the clock.
Right.
If the ball goes dead in bounds, okay, soon as the ball is set for play,
Yeah.
the referee's blowing in the clock and the time begins to tick down.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're, again, when you're in the 3 minutes, you're usually in a rush to get, so you got to get things moving quick. If there's an incomplete pass or the player goes out of bounds, the referee will hold his hand up and the clock doesn't stop until the ball is snapped, at which time the referee will pull his arm down.
Doesn't start until, right. So it's all the same things that would normally stop the clock will, right? Can you run up to the line of scrimmage and spike the ball?
You can spike it down, yeah.
So long story short, and actually there was some people in front of us at the Toronto game that didn't understand, and we had these hardcore, like you can tell, lifer Argo fans right next to them, and the lady turned around and just explained to these kids, they were young kids, exactly how the clock worked. And she knew it like the back of her hand, but she explained it in such a great way. She just basically said all the normal ways to stop a clock still apply.
Yeah.
But the difference is it always stops, for a short period of time until the ball is set back up.
It's all about the ball being set.
Yep.
So here's the problem. Fredericton's driving to win this game, and the quarterback runs a QB sweep out along the sideline. Mm-hmm. And rather than step out of bounds when he gets the first down, this kid is wrestling. He's trying his hardest to gain as many yards as he can.
Yeah.
He's just on the edge of the out of bounds, but he is pushing himself to get 2, 3, 5 yards. Takes about another 15, 16 seconds off the clock while this is all happening, and they run out of time to get a touch, to get close enough to make a touchdown pass to win this game.
Wow.
All he had to do was step out of bounds.
Yeah. Go set
get
up the
his
play.
team set up. The clock doesn't start until the ball's snapped.
Yeah.
He would have had that extra time to get downfield and make things happen to win this game. And I don't know if it's the players lose focus under the last 3 minutes or if they just haven't been coached properly how to manage that clock. So
this sounds like coaching.
Yeah.
Right? Because, it does, the Canadian way that the clock works wasn't even the issue here. The kid needed to run out of bounds. You don't fight for a few extra inches when the clock when the play.
I've seen this numerous times in high school. I saw it numerous times in this particular game. Even in the university games, there's numerous clock mistakes I see made by coaches and players. I just think that it's a area of focus it's an area that needs more focus from coaching. So I may send out a package to some of the people. Let's move on. Calgary wins 15-9 against Saskatchewan. And if there's one team that ever needed a bye week as bad as this team, Edmonton was on the bye week. They finally have stopped their losing skid. All right. So just to give you an update on the East, you got Toronto now is first place, 6-7. Ottawa's in second, 5-8-1. Hamilton is in third now at 3-9, and Montreal is 3-10.
Yeah, Montreal's fallen right off, but I'm telling you, with one game played fewer, and the Argos really firing on all cylinders right now, this is going to be tough for Ottawa, especially with their quarterback issues.
That's it.
Yep.
This week's games coming up. You've got Saskatchewan and Ottawa, Montreal at Calgary, Toronto at Hamilton, and Winnipeg at Edmonton. Now, my biggest question to Andy is, do we want to have a lock of the week in the CFL?
Not a problem. This is one of the easiest calls, I think, ever.
Make it.
Calgary's going to take out Montreal. In fact, my lock of the week would be anybody playing against Montreal, but Calgary's on fire. They're a great team. They're probably the best team in the league.
All right, I'll give you that one. Now, I'm going to go with a little bit tougher pick.
Sure. That's why I took that one ahead of time.
Years ago, I'm stuck here. I'm trying to get it out. Years ago, I had there was a particular player that gave this jersey to my father, and my father, in turn, has given it to me. And it's a Hamilton Ticats jersey, so I'm going to go with the Ticats. Oski wee wee, Oski wawa, baby. So there you go.
All right.
There's the Ticats this week. All right, so before we get out of here, Andy, any final thoughts?
No, just it was a blast going to BMO Field, and now I want to go to every CFL stadium and see how they compare. I want to know how the other and I really wanted to ask Ron when we were chatting with him, what his favorite stadium was from a player perspective outside of Ottawa, of course.
Yeah.
So no, it was really awesome, and now I got to get to at least the other stadiums in Ontario very soon.
Well, I've had the luxury. I've been to. I was at Rogers Center. It was the Sky Dome when I was there. I was there. I've been to Calgary for my Metro Bowl trip last year.
Yeah.
And then I also, years ago when I was young in college, I went to the Ticats back in the old stadium.
Okay.
In the old Ticats stadium. So I've been to 3, and we would love, Ray Perkin, if you're listening, we would love to attend an Ottawa Red Blacks game, and we'd even be willing to sit on the sideline with you. I mean, it's up to you. You let us know.
Yeah,
But
you let us know. We'll throw a few coaching tips in there.
There you go. There you
offer
go.
some advice and get ourselves completely escorted out of the place.
Exactly. All right, before we get out of here, let me once again thanks Moosehead Light. If you're going to get yourself a beer, get some Moose Light. It's scary good.
And try this Moose Light Lime.
Moose
good.
Light Lime. It's
Yeah.
good. You like it?
Yeah, it's
awesome.
good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's good.
And again, company, organization, school team, hats, shirts, jackets, you know the drill. Go see the Doyles. Doyle's corporate image. They'll look after you.
Doyle's rule.
Yeah. And again, Frank, Done Right Sauce. If your kitchen sucks and you're looking to spice up that food in your kitchen, go see my little brother Nicky's company, Done Right Sauce, which you can also find in Ontario. Nick, what's the store again?
Longo's.
There you go. Go to Longo's, get yourself some Done Right Sauce.
Done Right Sauce. And Ray Sr. should have a much easier time with this one.
There you-
Completely remove a word, right?
There you go.
He will
There you go.
still screw it up.
Yeah? All right.
All right, guys, that's our first show of our Canadian podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Podbean. And you'll also find it at our website, firstdownsportspodcast.com. Have a great week.
See you guys.
She's all lit up, hair and makeup. She's out every night. She's drinking pesticide. She's up and gone again. It's not a boyfriend. They're not the kissing kind. They're just some friends.